Welcome to the Northern Business Podcast, a regular discussion with people in the north of England who lead businesses, employ people, and have new ideas to help our economy grow. The Northern Business Podcast is produced by Recognition PR, which serves scores of companies in different sectors of the country, some of which occasionally contribute to this podcast. We're kindly sponsored by Virtue Motors PLC, one of the top automotive retailers in the UK, with a network of dealerships representing some of the world's most popular brands. So, I'm Jamie Collis, I'm standing in for Graham Robb today, and joining us in the studio we have Stuart Fearn from OneBanx and Simon Wilkinson from Wilkinsons Landscapes. Gentlemen, hi, welcome to the programme. So, let's start off with, always like when I present this to give our audience an idea of who's actually sat on the sofa. So let's start off with, Stuart, give us your elevator pitch. What is OneBanx?
So OneBanx is a financial technology company that provides access to cash. Now, what does that mean? Basically, banks are closing on the high street. We provide technology that replaces that, can be held, facilitated within other institutions, building societies, within community hubs, and actually banks are using our technology also. But what it does is, at the end of the day, it means that if banks are closing, people could still have access to cash to deposit and withdraw, particularly small businesses.
Fantastic. Beat that. Go on. Your turn. Your turn, Simon.
I'm Simon Wilkinson, Managing Director of Wilkinsons Landscapes, and basically we landscape predominantly domestic gardens. We do have some commercial contracts, which see a bit different. Almost every aspect of landscaping across the northeast.
Short and succinct, but we'll go into more detail shortly. So, one of the things that's happened, let's start off, right? We'll come back to the businesses in a second, have a bit of a discussion on that. But obviously we're coming to the end of party conference season for anyone who's interested in politics. But what that means is that for businesses, we're now sort of focused, sort of laser focused on what's going to be in the budget. It's been the topic of conversation for a while. The date of the budget's now that we now know, end of November, which is quite late. So does that lead to uncertainty? So starting with you, Simon, what would you like to see as a business owner, entrepreneur? What would you like to see from this budget?
Some relief, a chance, to be honest. You know, some good news. I think everyone wants, drive some confidence back in business owners, which then will only help the economy. You know, at the minute times are tough for everyone, but it needs to be recognised as running businesses. We need the tools to be able to progress the market and make it better for everyone else downstream.
What do you think, Stuart?
I think for us, I think as a business, it's probably less of relevance for me. I like to see, because we're a financial technology, we're a startup really at the end of the day, and sort of supporting new businesses is a big thing. But actually, supporting employment is a bigger thing for me.
You're involved in the Jobs Foundation, aren't you?
Yeah. So
Tell me a bit about that.
So I'm on the steering team for the region for the Jobs Foundation, which its ambition is to increase employment out there really. And within this, one of the conversations at the moment is how do we incentivize to take on people who've been long-term unemployed? I think people have been, the region has a real discrepancy compared to the rest of the country in employing, for example, people who are disabled. We have a higher number of disabled people and we employ less of them. But actually to incentivize employers to take them on, we believe that a reduction or a removal of national insurance, say for example in the first year, would be a good incentive to help employers, and then bring that in line with, say, access to work, which is a government scheme, would make it so employers had support in doing that.
Would that help an employer like you, Simon?
It certainly would. I mean, like I say, obviously disability, obviously with landscape gardeners, disability is a massive spectrum. It's not entirely physical, as I well know. Yeah, anything like that would be great, and I'll come with open arms by myself.
Fantastic. Okay. Let's delve a bit into the businesses. So I'm start with you. So see, landscaping, all types of landscaping. But let's talk about trends and stuff. Obviously, there was a trend obviously during the pandemic and after the pandemic, going back a few years now, when people weren't going on holiday, so they were investing in their homes and staying at home. Did that happen with landscaping? Hasn't it continued? People still taking great pride in their gardens?
It's, you know, that was a real boom time for landscapers. It did present its own problems. A lot of people popped up out of nowhere, some real bad projects done. Bad people didn't know what they were doing. It was understandable because obviously they were only trying to make an income during a really difficult time. Now, that demand isn't there, but it has flowed through. Obviously, people are still taking more of a pride in the gardens and certainly investing in the properties. Obviously, with uncertainty in the economy, your house is obviously one of your safest bets. So to actually invest in it, garden obviously included, is a good choice. So yes, we are still seeing that, and that's great.
And what about, we're in autumn now, it's October, it's already dark.
Yeah.
So what are people having done in this period? Because obviously you always think about gardening, in the spring and the flowers coming out and, fruit on the trees and all that, but now's a good time to do some work.
It's a fantastic time to be landscaping. This, as a landscape, this is your best time of the year. It's not too hot. Obviously, the weather's still being kind, no frosts. We're actually into the best time to be planting turf and things like that. Really does give, your plants time to get into the ground and put on a fantastic show in the spring. Obviously, there is this common, I'm going to call it a misconception, that landscaping shouldn't be done in the winter. Why not? We have ways around that we can still produce top quality projects no matter what the weather. And then you set up for the spring and the summer when you want to be enjoying it. What better?
Fantastic. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Obviously, this isn't gardener's question time, but
Yeah.
any quick tip if you're looking after your garden at this time of year that you should be doing? Because obviously we're transitioning from end of summer into autumn.
Yeah, don't get caught out by those early leaves that are falling down, obviously getting on your lawn, your herbaceous perennials, etc. You've got to get them off. They're going to be causing damage, particularly to your lawn. Don't be letting things getting swallowed up, and thinking, I'll wait for all the leaves to come down. It's too late. The damage will be done.
Good tip. This is going to be a nice segue to you, Stuart. So hold fire for one second there. So we talked about landscapers before when you're talking about getting out there, because it's manual work, but it's not just that. You've invested in digital technology, haven't you? So how has that helped? Because you see, there's a segue here coming in. Nearly tech startup. We're getting there. But in terms of using digital technology, how has that changed the way that you guys work and how your customers see you as a professional business?
Massively. I mean, it's certainly increased our efficiency, which we have passed on the savings to customers. Like I say, we did have a quick chat touching on savings that I've had to make because of what's happened in the economy. The digital, side of the business is certainly a big driver of that, and we're always looking and pushing to be at the boundary of that to make sure that we're in there first, get the best understanding of it and the best use of technology within landscaping and obviously running a business. So fundamental to us now.
Fantastic. We'll come back to talk about people in a bit, because I think this links nicely with what Stuart's involved with. So I assume that there is a demand and an appetite for people to be able to use banking services that are in their town, despite banks closing. I think there was 600 branches closed last year. So what reaction have you had to where you're sort of visiting, I suppose?
Yeah, so I've worked in financial services for 22 years, 25 years now. 22 of those years with building societies. Building societies, the last one, Newcastle Building Society, was actually opening branches in the last 5 years, where the rest of the industry, there's been a closure. So sectors are different, building societies and banking, just because they service different, organised, different people. But from a perspective of banks itself, is that, current account, building societies tend not to run current accounts. So anybody who banks, whether it be a business or an individual, has a current account, pays a direct debits, pays the bills from it. Unfortunately, when the banks do close, and because they're becoming very digital and they're following the trend of digital at the end of the day and coming up with alternatives, it leaves those who want to trade in cash on a high street not able to do it. Small businesses, particularly high street small, tend to want to use cash. The barber, the hairdresser, the flower shop, there's definitely a movement of cash for those. Well, all of those need to find somewhere to bank. If the banks have left the high street, they go to the next town. They could lose 45 minutes travelling.
That's not efficient, is it?
And that's the key. And I've got evidence of that and surveyed. It could take an hour and a half for somebody to travel to do the banking. They take time out of the business to do that. So yeah, there's a real obvious need for it. And we're being engaged currently by towns, by organisations, by combined authorities now to look at how can we help them in banking.
And do you think that also can be a catalyst to bringing people into high streets? Obviously, there's a big debate about out of town shopping and high streets are dying, and that's probably one of the reasons why banks are leaving. But are you showing the opposite to this?
There's lots and lots of problems, lots and lots of challenges that make it difficult for town centres, but there is a real positive in there somewhere. In any town, you'll see positive stories, not just negative ones. And I think from my perspective is that what we know is if you can maintain banking, you can help maintain businesses. And if you can maintain businesses, you'll maintain flow of people coming in and using the towns. It's all about creating community at the end of the day. And it's been made of many different things. You know, at the moment, I'm involved in a mural project in a town in North Shields.
Oh, fantastic.
But that adds into the factors that banking's in town. It adds into the factors that there's other facilities in town, like communities, hubs and centres, and then shops, of course.
Oh, fantastic. Some of the areas that you'll operate in the northeast might be sort of rural villages and stuff. I suppose you might be popping out on a break, if you get a break, for a coffee and whatever, to help that you can spend the £5 in your pocket rather than the cut using your card.
I can certainly see why it would. I mean, I am quite a digital guy with my money, to be honest, but it is due to being so busy and just dashing in place, and I'm using my phone to pay for things. But I can certainly see from very small businesses how cash can be vital. I mean, I know myself, when I'm out and about trying to get comms sometimes is a complete nightmare. And obviously it's those rural locations where the cash is going to affect them most. You'll get that dropout of communication, which does happen. It's not fair someone has to shut the business because cash isn't available or spendable, whatever that means.
Well, we had the not so long back as Spain and Portugal lost all the banking. Suddenly the fact is there was places where people couldn't buy food. They woke up in the morning, there was no access to cash at all because the digital access had disappeared. Cash was required. Cash was king. It's still king. You know, there might be a negative side sometimes to cash and sometimes business, but primarily there is a cash economy. 20% of people still use cash. We're not, I would have said, not in a crisis these days, a cost of living crisis, but we've got a cost of living challenge still. And I think at the end of the day, you take back in, I'm 56 now, but I'd still remember the day when I brought my first wage packet home, and it was a wage packet and it was a piece of paper, and I split my wage, I paid my mum my board, did this, did that. People are still managing budgets these days. It's not maybe us in this room, but people are managing budgets, and splitting cash to manage budgets is a really important thing for some families. And say up to 20% of families are still using cash regularly.
I always think it's also good for young people as well, because especially now they don't, like you say, we have pay packets. My first paper round had a pay packet.
Yeah.
There's cash that you would earn, and then, like you say, you would split it up and work out what you did. Now kids who just see us just tap in, tap. So from potentially all kids think there's a never-ending source, but that's it, and they understand. But then to learn to use cash and have to take it somewhere to pay for it.
It's the movement of cash. I think, let's be truthful, we all enjoy digital. We all want a digital to keep advancing. As far as I'm concerned, I'm pro-digital. I want it to keep moving forward. But there's always going to be circumstances and times when we might need to use cash, want to use cash, and some people prefer to use cash. But it's choice. Giving people the choice is really important. I'm sure there'll be a point in time when choice will slowly move away to more digital situations. But right now, it's choice, and people should have a choice. And we know that choice is there. Some of the clients that we're working with currently, there's billions of pounds worth of cash moving every day. So there's lots of cash moving in this economy. But actually, losing all your banks on the high street does mean losing cash.
Yeah, of course.
We have to keep our eye on that.
In terms of the business, you say it's a tech business, it's a startup. The people you employ, predominantly digital type people, tech, finance people, or are there opportunities for all different sort of roles in the business?
Yes, in our business, it's still a reasonably small business, but it's growing, and it will grow significantly over the next couple of years. We have a split. We have operations people. We're very hybrid, so working across the UK. We've got people in different locations. We've got technology people, experts in digital technology, programming. We've got people who answer the telephone and support people. We've got a fair spread, and you've got me, and I'm kind of sat in the middle somewhere, play with digital, but actually I'm probably more somebody who talks to people more than anything else.
Fantastic. And this sort of brings back to what you were saying about the Jobs Foundation. I wanted to bring in Simon on this to talk about careers in horticulture, because I know that's one of your hot topics. So it's a great platform here to talk about it.
Yeah.
how is recruitment? How easy is it to recruit? And what opportunities would you want to see there to help bring more people in?
It's difficult to recruit in landscaping and Teesside. I mean, there was a few years ago a situation you just couldn't actually get qualified in horticulture in this area. That's changed. It's better. The opportunities are there. The uptake's incredibly poor. Obviously, my opinion on it is that the colleges are getting in far too late. I've spoken to them. It's an open day presented to people as they're leaving school. I think horticulture certainly, obviously for me, was different because it was my dad, family business. I was involved in it. I saw it. I understood it. I understood the opportunities, the delight that you can get from it. But I know from my own research, investment in time, what's going on. Most young people, and we're talking about primary school kids, they don't understand that that's a real opportunity. We're living in a world that's driven by television, and small children aren't watching Gardener's World. And rightly so, it's not catered to them, and I'm not saying it should be, but it should be recognised how vital, not just to the economy, but to the actual health of the planet, that we do have people who really know what they're doing. I mean, I know when I've been to other countries, things I often mention is when you go to an estate like this that we're on now, they will be covered in beautiful, large trees, well-managed, shrubs, perennials, etc., have all been thought about at the initial planting stage. What we're guilty of, and I see it every single day, and it honestly boils me up, is the wrong plants that have been planted in totally wrong place, been hacked out just willy-nilly. They're then going to be shredded, trashed, just creating a load of, more greenhouse gases. They should have been retracting from that. And that's just a lack of education at a fundamental stage. And to me, it's really, really important that we do start recognising this before it's too late. Because the fact is, you can't rely on the internet, for your horticultural knowledge. It's experienced guys, done it from the ground up. That, if we're not careful, is going to disappear. And I want to keep banging the drum about it, especially in this area, to try and make sure it doesn't happen.
So that's for the long term. We don't want it. It shouldn't be long term. I'd say more medium term, that we've got to change how people engage exactly in horticulture and try it as a career and learn about it. And kids love getting mucky, don't they? So they want to be out there and planting things but then encourage them to go beyond that.
It's a carbon reduction thing, isn't it? Yeah, straight away, carbon reduction. Planting plants is one of the key things that's maintaining it.
It's a mental health thing as well, because I think it's been well recognised and talked about now that particularly with younger people, if you spend too much screen time, it's really, really bad for you, especially in the long term. Now, the joy that you can get from something simple as putting some seeds in a pot and watching them develop, it's so easy. And it'll last a lifetime. And literally, it'll grow with you,
We're always guilty, aren't we, of making switches from that to purely digital. So like banking, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off, and turn off to the next digital thing. It's about just having that control to actually manage through these changes and actually maintain them together to get the best result of it.
Exactly, and finding that sort of where they meet. So you may go online to find out where the best walks are in the Lake District, but then you've got to go and do them. And it may be what plants you do. You might watch a video on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, whatever, and then go and do it. I mean, maybe there's people listening to us now on Spotify and Amazon and all the places they get their podcasts while doing something practical, but they're using something digital. So it's finding that balance, isn't it, really? And like you were saying before about using digital techniques in your business alongside the traditional and the practical. I think that's important. So as I was saying, going back to that's trying to get young people interested and start the careers and get the education system to improve. But what about now? Are you trying to get people who may have been long-term unemployed? Are you looking at people who might go for career change? What sort of strategy are you taking to finding people because I know from plumbing businesses and building businesses, they've always had those sort of challenges.
Well, literally, I'm looking for the right characters to carry through into the business in the long term. So what I'm saying is I'm in a very fortunate position that my business is wrapped in experience. This is the time to bring in those new people, young or old, with whatever issues they may have or not. for me, if you've got the right character and a willingness to learn, you'll always get there. If someone is prepared to invest in you. And obviously this falls back relevant too. It is a really risky time to do that, you know, because of what is going on in the economy and legislation in the background. It does need lightening.
See, I can't remember the exact stat, but the Northeast is worst at this. We've got a lot of worse. We're worse at a lot of things, which is pretty a challenge sometimes. But one of the worst statistics we've got is the 50 to 64-year-old. We're the worst at employing in that area, in that age range. But someone at the age of 50, I'm 56. So somebody at the age of 50 is really employable in what, and like say, right character, right person for the type of industry you're in. So there is this actually, if you're willing to employ somebody at the age of 50, there's lots of them unemployed in this region. There's a real opportunity there. And these are the sort of people I'm talking about. But if you took a 50-year-old on who hasn't worked for a while, he found himself out of his job, ageism kicked in, and actually getting back into work and they reduce the national insurance contributions for that person to work in your business. What a win.
Yeah.
What a win.
That's definitely, it would make a difference. And you would hope that they've got that character, that sort of X factor of character, because that's one of the things that look at. It's what is your experience? What have you done in this job? Whether that's young people or more experienced or, you know, more mature people, but have they got that character?
The chances are they've got a garden.
Yeah. That's very, very true. That's very, very true. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on Northern Business Podcast today. It's been absolutely fascinating chatting with you. But before we finish, I recently spoke to Dr Arnab Basu, who's CEO and founder of Kromek Group, about the company's exciting set of annual results. But just before we hear from Dr Basu, if you'd like to join us on as a guest on Northern Business Podcast, feel free to get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. It just leaves me to say thanks to our podcast producer, who today has been Joss Havokin, and our technical operator, who is always Robin Campbell. And now we'll hear from Dr. Basu. I'm delighted to be joined today by Arnab Basu, who's Chief Executive of Kromek PLC. Kromek recently just released their annual results. So, Arnab, can you tell us about how well the business is doing?
Great to be here. It's been a pivotal year for Kromek, actually, in many ways. But particularly, we were very pleased to announce our maiden profits, pre-tax profits for the year ending 30th of April 2020. We had a tremendous growth in revenue, which where revenue was announced as £26.5 million, and with a significant growth in both the EBITDA number, nearly £10 million, and the pre-tax profit of £3.1 million. So in terms of the financials, the business is in a very strong state. The balance sheet is very strong. This was a large part of this actually was played by the deal that we did earlier in the year with Siemens Healthineers, a $37.5 million deal over the next 4 years, where Siemens did this deal to use our IP, our patents and our IP and know-how for use in their spec modality. So it's a great partnership. It's on top of the IP commercial sort of agreement. We also have a supply contract. So it was a pivotal year in many ways, but also we demonstrated the monetization capability of the IP and capability we have developed over the last so many years.
So now you've made that achievement both financially and with an agreement like you have with Siemens Healthineers. What's next for the business? Is it to build on those relationships, or is it to grow in different markets, or what's coming up?
Look, Kromek operates in two markets. The advanced imaging, where with the deal with Siemens, really we did, and the other is CBRN detection. And last year has been very critical for the CBRN detection market as well, because we won some very important contracts within our home market in the UK. We won a framework contract worth £84 million for over 4 years where the Home Office is renewing their entire radiation detection infrastructure within UK. We won the Blue Light framework contract from the UK, which is for ambulances fire engines and also for police vehicles. But also we won a fantastic contract with the Ministry of Defense for supply of our D5 product. And now that particular product is a chosen radiation detector by our own armed forces, where we replaced an incumbent for many years. So there's been a pivotal year on both sides of the business. And going forward, we have the structural contracts in place where we see a very tangible path to grow the business profitably on a sustained basis over the foreseeable future. And we set a midterm target of getting to nearly doubling our revenue over the next few years, and increasing that profitability.
Fantastic. You obviously mentioned the work you're doing with the Ministry of Defence there. That segues quite nicely into that. Obviously, defence is a big issue, big subject, both domestically and internationally, obviously, at the moment. And there was the big expo in the Defence and Security Expo in London, Desi, and you were there. So give us an insight. What was it like? What stood out for you in terms of, the sentiment that was around the venue?
Look, DSCI was it happens every 2 years. For your sort of listeners who are not familiar with this segment, it's one of the largest defense exhibitions in Europe, and one of the bigger ones in the world, really. So this is where all the defense companies congregate to showcase their latest and the best to a whole range of customers. And there's delegations from all over the world. We had fantastic sort of time in there. We were very proud to be a sponsor for the Make UK Defence stand, and we had our product on a number of our partner stands, which was a great testament of the work we are doing, and the impact it is having in the defense world. And we are going to see this sector being very robust for us in terms of growth over the next few years. Of course, I don't have to tell you, the conflicts around the world are increasing, the political, the geopolitical tensions are increasing, and that is what is driving the defense spend both in UK but also in the NATO countries. And we are seeing, an increase in interest in what we do. And what we provide is the best-in-class radiation detectors to our warfighters, to our front-end first responders. And we see a strong and robust growth path in this market.
Oh, fantastic. So congratulations on the development, how the business is going, and you're doing a great job, and a job that has an impact on many people's lives as well. So that's absolutely fantastic. Arnab, thank you very much for joining us today.